What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the By the Hood podcast or webcast because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host, as always. My name is Jimmy, and as we start off every show, that's with gratitude. Just want to say thank you to anyone who supports what we got going on. Special shout out to all the students from By the Hood University, as well as the youth from the By the Hood Ownership Camp. Um, you know, our platform is designed to highlight brothers and sisters who are doing positive work in the community. I do want to say my partner Corey is not here right now. He's actually working with some youth right now as we speak. But with that being said, we have a sister on right now who is doing amazing work in the community, putting out positive energy. She's an entrepreneur, investor, realtor, and we're going to tell her story or let her tell her story. But without further ado, I want to introduce Devon Caudle. Devon, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. How are you?
Listen. Oh man, I'm amazing, man. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Time is valuable, so we appreciate when people, share their time with us. But let's jump right into it because you have a lot of things going on. But let's start from the very beginning. Let's go back, right? So, for audience that may never heard about you, tell us where you're born and raised.
Sure. That's a loaded question. I have been all up and down the East Coast my entire life. I was born actually in Fayetteville, North Carolina. My dad was stationed at Fort Bragg. But I only lived there until I was like 6 months old because he was honorably discharged. And then we moved back to Philadelphia. Both of my parents are from Philadelphia. That's how they met. My great grandparents' house is down the street from my grandparents' house. We moved back to Philly. Then we relocated to Central Florida to the Orlando Kissimmee area when I was like 5. And so I've kind of bounced back and forth between Florida and Philadelphia my whole life.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. Where were you at when you went to, say, high school?
I was in Orlando, but my mom was in Philadelphia. I have a joke. There's a running joke that every time my mom remarries or gets divorced, I move. But by the time I was in high school, I was like, listen, like I'm gonna stay. I already have in-state tuition. I'm just gonna stay down here. You could go back to Philadelphia, do your own thing.
Got you. Got you. So let me ask you this question. What kind of student were you coming up?
I was always a high achiever, I guess you would say. Like
Mhm.
I was in the gifted program, I was in AP classes, I was in the National Honor Society, I was national achiever. So I guess there's like a thing where you get a certain SAT or ACT score,
Mhm.
and if you score high out of like all the Black students nationwide, isn't that a national achiever? I think that's what it's called. But I
Yeah.
was always very talented academically. Both of my parents are super intelligent. My mother, she actually graduated high school at 16.
Wow.
My father, he didn't graduate, but he went to UVA, which is, the Harvard of the South.
Mhm.
So my mom used to read the dictionary for fun. I read the encyclopedia for fun. So I come from a very a family that definitely really respects and nurtures academic talent. So even though sometimes my mom was a single mother and sometimes she was remarrying and we moved a lot. Academics were heavily stressed. That was never like a issue for me growing up.
So,
Yeah,
so
I had
so you were strong academically, but
yes.
so if you can remember, what were your goals or plans back then? Like, you were doing well in school. What did you want to do when you got older?
I wanted to do everything. And I kind of do everything now. It's funny, like, how life is. Maybe you don't end up exactly where you wanted to or where you thought you were going to be. But when I was little, I always used to say I wanted to be a pediatrician, a model, and a whale and dolphin trainer at SeaWorld. So I always wanted to have like these three crazy jobs. Like, so now, same thing. I'm a multi hyphenate now, entrepreneur. So it's funny. It kind of, I guess, I'm doing what I wanted to do.
So that's hilarious. So in your journey, right, when you finished high school in Orlando, what was the next step in your journey? What did you do immediately after high school?
My plan was to go to Xavier. It's a Catholic HBCU. They're very strong in the sciences. And again, going back to the medical thing, I had switched from pediatrician to I wanted to be an orthodontist. So I was going to go to Xavier, but I graduated high school in 2006. Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005. So then I had to take a step back. And I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm in Florida. I have in-state tuition. I did well. So I qualified for what they call the Bright Future Scholarship, where they take care of your tuition if you go to a public university. So I went to Florida State straight out of high school. And then I ended up taking a break from school. And then when I wanted to go back to school full time, I actually transferred into FAMU, Florida A&M. So I did end up going to a HBCU and graduating from a HBCU, but it was just in Florida.
Okay, so at FAMU, what was your degree in at FAMU?
My degree was actually in sociology. So when I went back, I was like, it was a clean slate. I was an AA transfer. There was a lot of stuff going on, like personally and family wise. That's why I took a break from school and I was just working full time. So when I went back, I was like, I want to go to school. I always loved history, the social sciences, anthropology. I love people. I'm a people person. And I'm a history buff. So I was like, let me, major in something I'm actually interested in that's going to be engaging and hold my attention. So I majored in sociology and I minored in anthropology and Spanish. And FAMU was amazing. Like,
Mhm.
I really, me personally, when I do have kids, I only want them to go to either an HBCU or an Ivy League school because I feel like both of those places, like, they do a really good job at nurturing their students and making their students feel like they can do anything. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? If you made it here, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
I wish I would have went to FAMU straight out the gate, but I was like 17 years old making these decisions on my own, and so but yeah.
Yeah, everybody has their journey. So when you finish with the degree in sociology, what is the first step that you take after graduating? In terms of like going in the workforce or don't. What was
Yeah.
your next step?
So when I was in Tallahassee, so when I took a break from school in 2010, I was working in the hospitality industry. I worked in fine dining, both on the catering and the restaurant side. So that was a great experience. Hospitality definitely polishes, your customer service skills, your ability to connect with people quickly, build rapport. So once I was in hospitality, after I graduated in 2015, I was back in hospitality again, at that same place, that same hospitality group,
Hmm.
who owned like the one high-end hotel in Tallahassee and one of the fine dining restaurants in Tallahassee. But then I decided to move back home. I came back to Philly in August of 2015.
Hmm.
And that's how I fell into what I'm doing now. So again, I was waiting tables downtown at Davio's, and one of my regulars, he was like, you're really intelligent. Like, what do you do outside of like this? And I was like, look for real jobs. And so he offered me a job at the Edge Student Village. It's across the street from Temple's campus. Well, it's called something else now, but it's a high rise across the street from Temple, right behind the movie theater, at Broad and Cecil B. Moore. That was my first big girl job when I moved back home. So I started my career in student housing and the multifamily industry.
Okay. Okay. So you kind of talked about it already a little bit. That experience in working for high end hospitality. What did you take from that, and how did that help you when you started applying that to like student housing?
Yeah. So again, just like it's sales, at the end of the day, you're always it's very synonymous with what I ended up doing being a leasing agent and stuff. So like, always be closing, always upselling. That's something they always taught us. So you already have it's a little different hospitality because somebody's already there. You already
Hmm.
have someone there, but still you're supposed to upsell them while they're there. Again, building rapport, getting people to trust you. When there are recommendation, people ask you all the time for recommendations and things like that. So again, entering student housing, people are trusting you with their babies. So there was a lot. My soft skills were definitely polished. I will say that because constant calls from parents and things like that. But I think the hospitality to real estate track is actually like a really big one. A lot of people who do well in real estate are like former bartenders, former servers, or they used to work in like retail or something. Because again, just like those soft skills that you pick up in the more customer service heavy sales industry, they translate well into real estate.
Okay, so that gets you to where you are now. I know you also do property. You do property management, luxury homes. So, what are all the different parts of real estate that you touch in terms of what you currently do?
Sure. So after I worked at the Edge, I started working for Post Brothers. They're one of the huge developers here in the Philadelphia area.
Hmm.
They do value add. So they do luxury rentals, but they buy buildings that need value added to them. So they take something that's okay and they make it class A, super luxe. So that's how I got started in the luxury real estate realm. That was in 2016. I was a leasing specialist for Post Brothers. Then I ended up moving up the ranks to the property management office, doing resident relations and assistant property management work. I also worked for Altera, Leo Aldamato. He owns that development company. They have a different model. So where Post Brothers, their model is like value add, very class A, multifamily. Like they have a model. Leo's a little more of a mixed bag. He kind of goes where the opportunity is.
Hmm.
So he's got stuff in the suburbs, stuff in center city. Then now they're doing these like live, work, play type of community models. So
Hmm.
there's Lincoln Square at Broad in South Washington and
Yep.
LVL North at Broad and Spring Garden. So they're traditional high rises in the sense that there is a commercial anchored tenant at the bottom, but the commercial anchored tenants are very specific. They're supermarkets, they're Starbucks, they're PetSmart, they are wine and spirits. Like, and then you have your apartment in the middle. Then at the top floor, you have your amenity space. So it's literally like you live, play, work there. Building these little
Hmm.
micro communities. That's kind of what he's moving towards for a development model. So yeah, so I worked for tons of big developers in Philadelphia in different capacities on the sales and property management side. Then in 2019, I got my real estate license and I also started my property management company with my partner, Amani. We have literally worked almost every job together. We worked at Davio's together. We worked at the Edge together. We both worked at Post. So, we're best friends. We know we can work well together. So we were like, let's start a business. So we started C&C Property Management in 2019.
Hmm.
That's also when I got my real estate license. So since then, I've been a realtor. I own my own property management company, and I matriculated out of the corporate world December of last year. So I've been working full time for myself since January of 2022.
Nice. Congratulations. Congratulations. So, what has that journey been like? What are some
You
of the
already
challenges or
know.
some success?
You already know that's been that's a mixed bag. Entrepreneurship is very all over the place. It has tons of ebbs and flows, but I do love the freedom that I
Hmm.
have with entrepreneurship. The reason why my schedule was so crazy today, and thank you for your flexibility, is because I had to jam everything that I need to do in today because
Hmm.
tomorrow I'm going to London.
Hey, listen, that's a great problem to have, right? That's a great
Yeah,
problem.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. So while everything is kind of all over the place and your days never look the same, and like one month you might have, 30K coming in, another month you might have $300 coming in. I'm very grateful for the freedom and the flexibility and the work life balance that entrepreneurship affords
So I
me.
do have another question for you, right? Because that live, work, play model, and I study real estate data, so that's something that's going on literally globally.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I had an opportunity to speak in Australia, and one of the things they showed me was they're building a lot of facilities like that over there, right?
Yes.
So it's not just a thing that's happening here, but then I see more of it happening in the city, and then other big cities in the United States are also building those buildings. So that's interesting to
Yeah.
see that become a thing, and I think the pandemic is going to like make it happen even faster, right?
Yeah.
But you worked in two development companies who have two different models. So
Correct.
I say all that to get to this question. What did you take from each of those experiences that like helped you in your journey?
Yeah, so my long-term goal when I started working in real estate, oh, that's probably the timer for the room, but that's fine. When I started working in real estate, my long-term goal is to develop. So, but my model is completely different from both of them. And I mean, that's because to be quite honest, these are white men. Their
Hmm.
experiences as a Philadelphian is completely different from mine. So I am more interested in doing mixed economic development, right? So I love multifamily housing. I love mixed use commercial, right? So I love the high rise model with the commercial anchor tenant,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to develop to help keep what makes the community great there. So I feel
Right.
like a lot of the problems with DC, New York, Philadelphia now with the city investing in itself and investing in development and trying to attract people to build and reimagine what the urban landscape looks like. The people who were left there when, white flight happened and urban blight took over, they're forgotten about. They're not included in the conversation. So I would like to build, like, maybe if there's 100 units, right? I would like 10 to 30% of them be dedicated to people who are on Social Security because they're retired or, they're not able to work. Women who are formerly homeless or incarcerated, Section 8 voucher recipients. And I don't want them to all live on one floor. I want them to be all mixed in on all different levels because, everyone has a right and a privilege to live somewhere that they love.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves to talk about luxury, but what does that mean, right? I'm from the belief that, like, just being alive, it means you are afforded luxury. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely want to do more like a mixed economic model where, like, the market rate rents float and carry the costs so that you're able to have stabilized, affordable housing for people who need it from the community so they're not displaced.
I
So
like that. Just being alive means you're afforded luxury. I like that.
yeah, like
That's that's the word
don't they
right
say
there.
that all the time? Don't they always say, like, oh, you should be so grateful to be alive. Life is so beautiful, blah, blah. So if life is all of that, then that means just by being alive, that means I'm important. I should be able to have the best there is to offer.
And listen,
Um,
that's a T-shirt right there. Go make that T-shirt. That's a word right there. Just being alive means you're afforded luxury. I like that. Um, and that's interesting that you talk about that model because I agree. I really haven't seen anyone um pull it off at scale yet, right?
So in New
Because
York, they do it.
yeah,
The
yeah.
lottery system, all the new, like, residential, multifamily high rises, they have to dedicate a certain percentage to the lottery. So with the lottery, for people who aren't familiar, when there's a brand new construction building that's residential in New York, they have to allot maybe like 10% of the units
Mhm.
to people who are truly working in middle class. So that means, like, anybody who grosses under maybe like 85,000 or whatever, their rent is different from the market rents of the rest of the building. Their rents are like $2,200, which, in New York, a brand new luxury
Oh
apartment,
yeah.
that's unheard of. So
Yeah, but I was talking
they
about, and I know in Philadelphia, I think they have like a rule
yeah,
where you can if you don't allocate it to someone with lower income, you can like pay into some sort of fund or something, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken. Because I know
yeah.
that some
Philadelphia is a little
developers,
bit different.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what they do. So to avoid having to put the mixed bag there, they'll just make a donation into this fund. So I'm interested to see like how that could happen here in Philadelphia, but
yeah,
um that's an amazing model to try to follow because that does a couple things. It helps urban blight, but also gives like doesn't displace people, right? It doesn't displace
exactly.
people. It gives them an opportunity to enjoy the luxury that's coming into their neighborhoods.
And really, I feel like personally, when a lot of this stuff is happening, a lot of this redevelopment, it's really our older people who are displaced. Everybody hears the horror stories about predatory wholesalers who, stole houses out from under elderly people for pennies to the dollar. So
Mhm.
it's just unfortunate because I feel like really the older people, that's the pillars of our community. So,
Yep.
like, when they're displaced, like, there's nothing anchoring us. So my great grandparents, I'm from, like, Nicetown, Tioga area, like,
Mhm.
18th and Venango. My great grandparents, they moved there. They bought that house in 1952 after they moved out of the Richard Allen projects. They moved up here in 1940. four or so
Mhm.
from North Carolina, from Lumberton and Elizabethtown. They moved into the old Richard Allen projects. Then once they saved up enough money, they bought a house at 18th and Venango in 1952. And my great grandma said all the time, she was like, "We don't live in the ghetto. We just live in a black neighborhood." And I would be like, "Are you sure about that?" But my great grandparents, they were a pillar of the community. I'm not even kidding. Like my great grandparents, they used to have this annual 4th of July cookout. Who they invited everybody. They were feeding, my whenever somebody would come and ask him for money, my great grandpa would give the local crackheads $20. You know what I mean? People
Mhm.
really respected him. He was a man of the community. They could go out of town. They loved to gamble. They would go to Atlantic City at least 5 times a year. They didn't even have to lock their doors. Like nobody messed with them. You know what I'm saying? That's the
Yeah, it's a real community.
community. Yeah, like that's community. And like without those, families who are there for generations, without those, old heads on the block, like you lose a lot of that, and I feel like Philadelphia has lost a lot of that. And that's kind
Oh,
of why,
absolutely.
yeah, that's why we're in the
Absolutely.
situations we're in now. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
instead of uh judging, he could have very much judged, people based on their life situations, but instead he fed them, he gave them money, he was like, it's a blessing to be a blessing, and if you live by
Man.
that model, it does trickle out.
Yeah, that's inspiring. I mean, and that's the way it should be, right? So that's the way it should be. Dope story, by the way. You being able to trace back, that's amazing. Um, no, but the point I guess I'm trying to make is that, and this is interesting as a part of your story, is real estate truly can be a tool used to help folks. And I think that gets lost a lot of times because we look at the numbers and the properties
Yeah.
and we're into the data so much that we don't, really take the time to step back and think that real estate was once used as a tool of oppression, but it also can be used as a tool of empowerment. So,
Yes,
and I think
exactly.
that you recognize that from this conversation when you talk about what your long term model is in terms of development.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this question: along this journey where you started, traveling and wanting to get into the sciences, starting in social science and then working in hospitality, this whole journey, what has been like the biggest hurdle or something that you had to overcome to get you to where you are now, where you're on your way to London tomorrow? Like, what has been the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome to get you to where you are today?
I would say definitely like mindset stuff.
So, what was it about the mindset? Did you have to like?
Mindset, inner work, like that kind of stuff. So I was, it's difficult when you're like a gifted child, right? So
Mhm.
I was a very confident child, very self-assured, very confident, very inquisitive, very fearless. But just like everybody else, puberty is very ghetto. When I turned like, 15, I start comparing myself to other people. Doubt starts to set in, things like that. So like, and I think I mentioned earlier, my mom moved my senior year. There was just a lot of stuff going on personally and family wise from like the age of like 15 to like 25, I would say. So just like that's been my biggest hurdle personally, is I had to ground myself. I had to reaffirm you know who I am. I had to figure out, like, I had to find that from within, you know what I mean, instead of trying to, and again, it's like, not to beat myself up, it's natural when you're going through that, adolescence, early adulthood stuff. Like I said, everybody's comparing themselves to everybody else. Everybody wants to be normal. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah,
weird
I totally get
time.
you.
So
I
so
mean,
I had to, so that's really been a big part of my growth journey, is like retreating back into myself, like, who am I? Where do my values lie? What type of, getting that type of value from myself, because I think being intelligent, I got a lot of it from other people. I was always getting awards and cords at graduation and all that kind of fluff stuff, but that dies out once you're an adult. So I
yeah.
had to start finding that validation from within.
So, what helped you with that? Like, was it anything that you specifically did, or was it a person, or what kind of helped you, figure things out as you were going through this, this growing period?
I would say definitely books, podcasts, conversations with older women about their
Hmm.
lives. Um, what else? Therapy,
Mhm.
group. I went in 2019, I went on a women's retreat for Black and brown women. That was beautiful. Just being in those types of spaces. Because
Okay.
once you start to put yourself out there and realize you're not the only person going through this and having these questions and these struggles,
Yeah,
then that takes down, the embarrassment and things like. Then
because
you
you're
can
not
really
alone.
do the work.
Yeah, 'cause you're not
Yeah, yeah,
alone. And you know
yeah.
what's interesting is you talk about that, right? You said going through puberty is ghetto. That's pretty funny. But
It is.
but I
It's very
feel bad for
ghetto.
the kids now because not
I
only do
know
they
it's even
compare themselves,
worse.
now they have social media, so they're comparing
Yeah.
themselves to people who might not even be real. Let's just face it.
Yeah. I mean, I was on the cusp of it, a digital camera, MySpace girl,
Okay.
AIM, LOL. So I was like on
Hey,
the cusp
listen.
of it
Mhm.
where like people's nudes were getting leaked. It was a whole bunch of drama
Yeah,
when I was
yeah,
in high school too. So I can like empathize with them on that level, but it's just, you can drill that into someone as much as you want. They have to come to that like aha moment on their own,
got you. And you talked about books helping you. Do you have a favorite book, a couple of favorite books that helped you?
Uh, let's see. Um, I'm more of like a podcaster
Okay,
now. So I
like
have a
maybe
ton of podcasts that I love and that I listen to. I love, love, love Journey to Launch. So in 2017, I was working for Post Brothers. I was living on site at one of their properties. So I was getting a base salary. I was getting commission incentives for new leases. I lived on site and at Presidential City for a discount. So I took a step back. I was like, if they can afford to pay me this and let me live for that, well, how much are they making? That's kind of where my like wheels started turning. So that's when I got really into the FIRE movement, financially
okay.
independent, retire early movement. So Journey to Launch, Jamila Supran, I love her. Like her podcast, gems, gems, gems. Of course, Bigger Pockets. I love Bigger Pockets.
Mhm.
Um, Also, the Wall Street Journal has this podcast specifically about women in business. That one
Okay.
is a game changer. They had the woman who owns Salamander Resorts,
Okay.
Bob Johnson's ex-wife. She was on there. The woman who started Spanx, the woman who started Soul Cycle. Like that's an amazing one. And then also, I love what other podcasts do I really really love? How the I can't remember the name of it, but it's like something like How I Built It or something like that. And it's
Okay.
about
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
love
so like
podcasts too. I'm a
yeah,
huge.
so La Colombe was on there, Philly. I love their podcast episode was very, very inspiring because it was during the pandemic that they were interviewed and they talked about that, about how like because they, a lot of their they're on shelves in Wawa and stuff, but a bulk of their business is their cafes. So when everything was shut down, they were like, how do we not lay off our workers and still be able to sustain ourselves? So the founders, the managing founders of the company, they took a pay cut to zero so that they could be able to pay all of their staff throughout the pandemic. And I thought that was such a
Mm,
beautiful thing. I feel like people, like you said earlier, people get so wrapped up in the numbers, in their individualistic rise to wealth, right? That they
mhm.
forget that there are like socially equitable ways that we can all get there. I
Yeah.
just thought that was such a beautiful story because I ain't never met a boss who they would take a pay cut of $0 to make sure that we were housed and fed, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. So that's some amazing. Have you ever heard of Business Wars?
No, I gotta look that one up.
All
That's
right.
a
So
podcast. I gotta look that
yeah.
up.
So that's an interesting podcast to me because what Business Wars does, it looks at like competing brands. Like an example would be Coca-Cola and Pepsi, and it goes into the history of how they became competitors. And just some of the things that have happened along the years, and it's very interesting because it's not just those two. I mean, it's stuff
Yeah.
like Facebook and Snapchat. I mean, there's all sorts of companies that are competing
Mm.
brands, but historically, how they become. So that will be probably something that if you love business
What's it
podcasts, right?
called again?
Business Wars.
Business Wars. Okay, I'm gonna look that
Yeah, yeah, but I love podcasts as
up.
well,
Me
and yeah,
too.
yeah. So podcasts are always great. So let me ask you this question, right? So you talked about your journey, the businesses that you're in now. You talked about the podcast you like. Let's talk about the future. What does the future hold for you and your business, or what are some of the things you're looking to do in the future?
Sure. So Right now, so I'm a full-time realtor, co-owner of a property management company. Right now, I've actually been flirting with the idea of entering back into the corporate world, but just because to be a developer, it takes a lot of money. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of in a, so I'm just like, well, let me add another income stream, just because I'm in like a growth mindset right now
Mm-hmm.
in a space of expansion. So just thinking of how I can, up my income quickly, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
a job is a really quick one. So I've been flirting with the idea of maybe working for like a prop tech company or a commercial real estate firm or a
Mm-hmm.
developer. And then I'm continuing to take on clients. I do love, right now, I probably work mostly with investors and first time home buyers. And that's just because
Mm-hmm.
like I'm 33, so my network just happens to be a lot of first time home buyers. And then also I invest myself, so I attract a lot of investors as well. So that's where most of my real estate business is. But I am on a luxury real estate team, so there are some one-offs where I'm dealing with clients who are renting out the Ritz or who are looking for, million dollar homes on the main line.
Yeah.
But the bulk of my business is definitely like people like me. And then also with the property management company, I recently went through the Power Up Your Business program that Community College of Philadelphia has. That's an excellent program. It's a peer based learning cohort of business owners. And so, I entered that thinking, I was like, oh, we're looking for funding. We're trying to, ramp up our marketing so we can acquire more doors, work with more clients, things like that. But taking that class, it made me realize, like, girl, you got to get your systems in place. Like,
So I've actually never heard of that. Could you explain what that class is
oh my God,
and
it's amazing. I'll send you the information on it because, I would love for more people who are entrepreneurs in Philadelphia to take
Mhm.
a class like this. So it's literally like everyone who you're in class with is a business owner.
Okay.
Everyone who comes to speak to your class is a business owner. And everybody's at different levels in their business.
Mhm.
And so again, so I entered this, I'm like, oh, this is a city backed program. It's through the community college. There's going to be, of course, we met people from the city who work in the commerce department and the land bank and things like that. So I was thinking from that model, I was like, oh, there's going to be access to funding and things like that. But in speaking to other people, I was like, me and Amani, we with us being the owners and operators, a lot of our stuff is in our head. We haven't written a lot of stuff down. I don't even have an employee handbook. Like, and just like taking those classes, it made me realize, like, maybe before you ramp up and have to hire and onboard new people, maybe you should take a step back actually and write out some standard operating procedures and an employee handbook and things like that. What your
Mhm.
firing and hiring process looks like, just because it gets harder as you get bigger to put that stuff in place. So that's what I've been
Systems.
working on this year, is really ramping up on the back office stuff, putting systems in place for my business that I co-own with someone, working with my real estate clients, and then exploring what other kind of opportunities are out there, corporate career wise. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because systems are so important because the system will allow you to really have your time because then
Yeah.
you can rely on. So,
It's the
man.
non-sexy stuff that's the most important, like hoops, that's not, it's not sexy, but it's an integral part of your business. It really is.
Yeah, man. Oh, listen, congratulations on everything you've accomplished thus far and good luck on everything that you have coming to you.
Thank you. I'm
Because
so glad we got to connect. You got to
yeah,
be on my thing next.
oh, listen, whatever you need, we are here. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, and for giving your time to our audience. And I'm going to make sure I put all of your contact information, your social media handles within the description. So for anybody listening, it will be in the show notes, and if you're watching the video, it will be right in the description. Make sure you check out what Devon's got going on. Make sure that you support everything that she has going on and follow her journey. Because listen, I'm rooting for you because your idea of what development can look like is something that's needed in the community. And I would love to see you accomplish that. So, we're all going to be following your journey. So, we'll be your what you call it, accountability partner, right?
Yes,
as you grow,
we
because
need them in entrepreneurship
no,
because
listen, yeah, because but also your ideas of development, because most people come on, they talk about, I want to have this many doors and this many things, but they don't talk about how you can build and keep
yeah,
people in the community right there. So I think that's important to see you succeed
yeah.
at, what your goals are. So
I want us
congratulations.
I want us as Black and Brown founders to stop. There's a where there's a book. Why should all the white boys have all the fun? Or you know what I'm talking about? That
Reginald
book.
Lewis. Reginald
Yeah.
Lewis, yeah.
So like, but it's like instead of it just being like, oh, it's not fair that white people have been gatekeeping us from doing XYZ X amount of years, right? We know that. We've had that conversation a million times. To me, that conversation is dead, right? I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about, okay, now that they legally can't gatekeep, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
that I can sue the shit out of an employer if they literally don't hire me because I'm a Black woman, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
when I do get this job where I'm making $250,000 a year, what am I doing with the money? You know what I mean? I want to reimagine what would a truly equitable world look like. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to enter these spaces to like replicate and duplicate white supremacy. Like
Well,
I'm trying to enter these spaces because I know that once you're comfortable and you don't have to stress about how you're going to eat and getting evicted, that now your brain is working in a different way. I want to reimagine,
what you're saying is the real conversation, right?
Yes. What's the next step?
Because truth be told, what I'm gonna say a lot of people won't like is that most people, they just want to become the oppressor, right?
Yeah, like
and that's
a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. But I just say that's where the problem lies, because they're not looking to change anything. They just want to be the one oppressing people.
You just want to be on a yacht for what? Like
yeah.
for what? What good is you by yourself being on a yacht out of if you're one out of 500 other Black people? You know what I'm saying? I want us all to be on it. Like, you know what I mean? That's what makes it fun. I don't want to be by myself on some, I don't know. So I want us to start having next level conversation. Once we build the wealth, what are we doing with it? Why are we? Yeah, I say that. It's funny that you said exactly what you just said, because I say that all the time. I'm like, Black men just want to be the white men of Black people.
Listen, I had a conversation with an entrepreneur yesterday, and he was saying how he has no choice. He was like, listen, I have no choice but to try to help others on my climb. He was like, because he's being honest. He was like, I've achieved a level of success. He was like, and it's actually lonely. He's like, because most of my peers or friends can't do the things that I can. And he said, so now I'm spending all my day trying to bring them up, because like he said, honestly, it's really lonely. So, I mean, that's something to think about. But I mean, that's a whole other great conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
I like the fact that you're thinking along those lines, and this is why we're going to be rooting you on. But like I said, thanks so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, being transparent, and talking about your journey. We definitely appreciate you. Like I said, for everybody out there listening or watching, make sure to follow Devon. Shoot her a message, let her know what you think about this episode, and give her some feedback, but also just cheer her on. And Devon, again, thank you so much. Good luck to everything you've got going on. And to our listeners, absolutely. And to our listeners and watchers out there, as we always say, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep. Game elevates, and we'll see you guys on our next episode. Peace.